All right, let's talk about three little letters that are completely changing the game in the business world. ESG. What used to be this kind of niche thing, yeah, now it's a huge deal for company leaders. So what's really behind this new ESG mandate? Let's get into it. For years, this was the big argument you'd hear in boardrooms, right? Is all this sustainability stuff just a costly PR stunt, or is it actually a secret weapon for getting ahead of the competition? And honestly, that question, it's right at the center of everything we're talking about with ESG. Well, it looks like that debate is finally starting to settle, and the verdict is in. The really sharp leaders out there, they figured it out. They don't see sustainability as some expense you have to deal with. Nope, they see it as the foundation of long-term value. So let's break down what this new mandate really looks like day to day. Okay, so when we say ESG leadership, what do we actually mean? Well, think of it like this. It's making sure that every big decision a company makes, I mean, every single one, from where they put their money to how they design a new product, is looked at through an ESG lens. You're asking, what's the environmental impact, the social impact, the governance impact? It's really about embedding this way of thinking deep into the company's DNA.
So, you might be wondering, how did ESG go from the backroom to the boardroom? How did it become the top priority for executives? Well, that brings us to what we're calling the new CXO mandate.
Listen, the game has totally changed. What used to be a little side project, maybe something for the annual report, is now front and center. So why the massive shift? It's pretty simple, actually. Leaders are finally realizing that the health of our planet and society is directly linked to the long-term financial health of their business. They're not separate things anymore.
And believe me, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The pressure is coming from every direction. You've got investors saying, hey, ESG risks are financial risks, and we're watching. You've got boards of directors demanding real long-term plans. And then, of course, there are the customers, who are more and more choosing to spend their money with brands that actually stand for something.
At the end of the day, this whole thing isn't just about feeling good or being nice. It's about being resilient. It's about building a company that's tough enough to handle whatever the world throws at it and still come out stronger. You could say it's the ultimate stress test for a modern business. Okay, so the goal is clear. But how do you actually take these big, lofty ideas and make them, well, real? It all comes down to data, which brings us to our next section, measuring what matters. You've probably heard this old saying in business, and it's never been more true than with ESG. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. I mean, you can have all the great intentions in the world, but if you don't have cold, hard data and some really clear metrics, those good intentions just evaporate. They don't lead to any real change. This is where discipline and transparency become absolutely crucial. And this right here is so important because it shows you exactly how this works. We're turning abstract goals into real, concrete actions. So under environmental, you're not just vaguely going green. No, you're tracking a specific KPI that's a key performance indicator, like reduce our carbon footprint by 15%. For social, you're looking at hard numbers on diversity and inclusion. And for governance, you're actually doing audits on your supply chain to make sure it's ethical. See? This is what accountability looks like. And just to be clear, this data isn't just for some internal report like it's filed away. Oh no. Transparency is the name of the game here. All those people we talked about, the investors, the customers, they want to see the receipts. They want to see the numbers. They want proof. And that's how you build trust. By being open and honest with your reporting, you show everyone that your commitments are way more than just empty words. All right, so once you have those metrics locked in, you can start doing the really cool stuff, re-engineering the company from the inside out. And that leads us right into our next idea, building the green engine. This is where the rubber really meets the road, where big strategy turns into action on the factory floor. It breaks down into three big steps. First, you redesign everything you do to cut down on waste. Second, you get obsessive about optimizing every single bit of energy you use. And third, and this one is a game changer, you embrace the circular economy. That means you're designing products from day one to be reused, repaired, or recycled. You're finally breaking that old, wasteful take, make, dispose cycle. And this right here is a perfect example of how the thinking has evolved, especially with supply chains. The old way, it was all about one thing, find the absolute cheapest way to do it no matter what. But that created these incredibly fragile systems that could break at any moment. The new, resilient way of thinking is so much smarter. It's about finding a balance, Yeah, cost still matters, but so do things like ethical sourcing, low-carbon shipping, and making sure your supply chain can actually handle a crisis.
And here's the really cool part, the big payoff. When you start rethinking your operations like this, you don't just get greener, you get smarter. Sustainability stops being a cost and turns into a driver of innovation. It forces you to find new, more efficient, more creative ways to do things, and that can give you a massive competitive advantage.
Okay, so we've got the why, the mandate. We've got the what, the metrics. And we've got the how, the operational changes. But there's one more piece. What's the glue that holds all of this together? That brings us to our final section. Purpose drives performance. I love this quote because it just nails it. The ultimate goal here is to get to a place where profitability and sustainability aren't seen as a trade-off. They're not fighting each other. Instead, they actually reinforce each other. It's a virtuous cycle. Doing good for people and the planet makes the business stronger, and a stronger business can do even more good in the world. And when a company truly has a purpose that's bigger than just making money, something amazing happens. It acts like a magnet. It pulls in talented employees who want their work to mean something. It gives investors the confidence that there's a real long-term vision. And it creates this powerful, loyal connection with customers that you just can't buy.
So, what's the common thread through all of this? It's leadership. That is the final most essential ingredient. It's one thing for an executive to say all the right things, but it's another thing entirely to make sure that purpose is lived out every single day by every single person. The C-suite, they're the ultimate guardians of that purpose. So I'll leave you with this one final question to chew on. As all of these trends get stronger and stronger, are we moving into a new era? A time where it's literally impossible to separate a company's financial value from its corporate values? Maybe they're becoming the exact same thing. Definitely something to think about.